So grade 12s, I see there's an essay here. There's a question here. Is Black consciousness not an essay? Black consciousness will always be source-based. It's paper 2, question 1. It is always source-based. So what I've got, it's actually a good introduction for me to look at 2 sources. I'm going to get you guys just to look at the source just for a minute, and then I want to talk about it. Okay. Right, if we look at this, remember, whenever you look at reliability, when you look at usefulness, when you look at validity, etc., you must always look at the contextualization. Unfortunately, I don't have the contextualization. I've just blown up the source. But if we go to my next slide, it says here, the source was printed 20 years after Steve Biko's death, and then there's the questions. So if we can just go back to the source quickly. It says, Biko, 20 years on, an indelible legacy. What does the word indelible mean? You can't get rid of it. It's there. It's far-reaching consequences. It touches everything. Okay, and then it's done by Zapiro, where I'm sure many of you guys have seen cartoons of Zapiro in the Sunday Times, etc., in the Weekend August. Okay, so firstly, they've asked you, what is the message of this cartoon? So if you had to look at it, what is the message? Okay, an indelible legacy. Biko, an indelible legacy. So if you had to explain to someone, what do you think is the message? What is the overall message of this cartoon? Just looking at it. And it's only for 2 marks. Obviously, the answer would be that message, okay, that Black consciousness had a massive impact. Either Black consciousness or Biko, because remember, Biko came up with Black consciousness. Black consciousness or Biko had a massive impact on South Africa. Because of that, look at the indelible legacy. Okay, so this was obviously published in 1997, because it's 20 years after Black consciousness was banned. Okay, so that is the message. That will get you 2 marks. Then the next question is, let's just quickly go to my next question. The next question is, explain the significance of Steve Biko's face in the cartoon. Okay, so what does it look like to you? Okay, it's supposed to be in the map of South Africa. You can see it's supposed to look like South Africa. So Steve Biko's face has become South Africa. So in other words, what is that trying to say? Now, it's obviously can be tied up in the legacy of Steve Biko. The fact that his face is in the shape of South Africa, the fact that he had such an impact on us. So the question is, explain the significance of Steve Biko's face in the cartoon. Well, it's shaped like South Africa, so it must mean that he has touched us. We live and breathe him. He has had such an impact on South Africa for his face to be speaking through South Africa. I hope you guys can see that. Okay, so the face is obviously that Biko's face is shaped like South Africa. Okay, that Biko's face is shaped like South Africa. Once again, showing us the impact he had on South Africa. Okay, then the next question is, if it was in my class now, I would stop and ask you if you guys understand that, but I don't see any questions coming through about the actual cartoon. Okay, and then the last question is the source useful, or comment on the usefulness of the cartoon to a researcher writing about Steve Biko's influence in South Africa's liberation. Now, matrix, obviously, usefulness, you must always look at the contextualization of it. So the top of it, Or where does the source come from? When was it done? Who came up with it, etc., etc. Do you think this source is useful to a historian studying the time period? Okay, why? And if so, why? So now, obviously, if we had to just look at this and we had to think to ourselves, does this tell us about Steve Biko? Is this useful in telling us about him and the impact he has on us? Then obviously your answer would be yes, definitely. It's definitely a useful source because it shows us the impact that Steve Biko had on the nation. Okay, it's very much of a muchness here. Very much a lot of the same answering. Okay, then I don't have much time left. I just quickly want to go through this source. This source is from Nelson. This source is from Nelson Mandela, and it speaks about how he felt black consciousness was when he was sitting in jail and he heard about black consciousness and he heard about the impact on the students. So if we can just go through it quickly. From Robben Island, we followed with immense interest the movement led and inspired by Steve Biko. The driving thrust of black consciousness was to forge pride and unity amongst the masses. Okay, so that's one, and you should take a highlighter and you should highlight. So that's one of what he believes is the driving force, pride and unity, okay, amongst the masses of our people and confidence in their ability to throw off their oppression. In other words, if they come together, they can throw off apartheid. For its part, the ANC welcomed black consciousness. So the ANC was happy with it. You see there, it says the ANC welcomed. The ANC welcomed black consciousness. Now remember, I said to you that the ANC was banned. Remember, so they are banned. They're sitting in the frontline states. They're sitting overseas. And obviously they would welcome this movement because it's rallying the people as part of the genuine forces of a revolution. We understand it was giving organizational form to the popular upsurge of all the oppressed people. So it was giving it organization. And how was it giving it organization? Because of SASO, varsities, BPC, workforce, SASM, scholars, and then the community programs in the homelands. So that's the organizational things they're talking about. Above all, the liberation movement asserted that in struggle, whether in mass action, underground organization, armed actions, or international mobilization, the people would most readily develop consciousness of their proud being. And he said that is so important, that they were becoming proud of who they are, that they realized they didn't need white people, they didn't have to rely on white people, they didn't have to have this inferiority complex that they are not like white people. Okay, he also very much came up with the idea that he doesn't like the term non-white. He says, what is non-white? You white or you non-white? What is that in South Africa? Does non-white mean that just because that ascertains who you are, you're either white or you're non-white? He's like, no, you're either white or you're black or you're colored or you're Indian, etc. So he was like, you need to step up to the fact that you are black and you are proud of being black, and you don't need other people to tell you what it's like to be black. You don't need other people to mobilize for you. And so that is what Nelson Mandela is saying here, that this consciousness of being proud of each other, of their equality with everyone else, of their capacity to make history. His revolution had a simple but overwhelmingly powerful dimension in which it played itself out. That of radically changing the consciousness of the people. What does the word consciousness mean? The way we think about each other. How do we think? How do we feel? How are we being? The intervention on level of consciousness, and consciousness was a key concept in his political approach and vocabulary, was at the essence of Biko's strategic brilliance and understanding. That intervention came at a time when the political pulse of our people had been rendered faint by banning, imprisonment, exile, murder, and banishment. In other words, our groups were being banned, our groups were being punished, our groups were being imprisoned, our groups were being murdered. And he's talking here about the ANC and the PAC and APLA and all the other banned organizations. And he says this came at the right time, because it was this mobilization of the people to realize, but hold on, no one's telling us who we should be, no one's telling us who we must, how we must fight. We must be proud, we can do it ourselves. Okay? Repression had swept the country clear of all visible organization of the people. So that is about Nelson Mandela. And guys, when you are going through your sources, do this. Underline, make notes, highlight, etc., and then go to your questions. Because you must first get a general feeling of what is the source speaking about. The source is very definitely speaking about the fact that Nelson Mandela was happy with black consciousness. He approved of black consciousness. He thought that black consciousness was wonderful in organizing the people. Okay, so that is already what you have in your mind even before you start looking at the questions.